Hello!
Hello!
And we are Annie and Konstantin, and you're watching another episode of
Updates.
And we are very excited because the props for our upcoming trailer video shoot have arrived. But first things first. The project we are shooting the trailer for, Dacha. Dacha is going to be a short film set for production start of September. Dacha is a story of Yegor, who was a former high-profile member of the Russian mafia, but who has now retired after a life of crime in southern Germany. Yegor spends a lot of his time at his allotment garden. He gets visited quite often by his grandson, who really likes to play with his grandfather, who has a lot of tricks to teach him. One day there's a dangerous conflict arises between him and his garden plot neighbor, and that's the point where Yegor has to decide whether to stick to the cover or return to his more of a dark and pragmatic roots to solve the problem.
I like that conflict because it's not one that has a clear answer. And I like how that ties in with the notion of family and with the notion of what are you showing the next generation or the generation after that, and what are you showing other people in general about who you are and how you understand yourself.
For me, the gist of the story is the relationship between the grandchild and the grandfather. How do you perpetuate a code of honor to the generation that comes after you, or to your kids, to your grandkids? How do you be a role model? So on the one hand, I want to tell an interesting, engaging thriller story, which it is, but on the other way, I wanted to tell a family story and a little bit also a story of coming of age. We talked about now was a lot of theoretical stuff that went through our heads.
Yes.
But
let's talk about practical things.
Yes, because films aren't made in the heads; they're made in cameras and bits and bytes and in props and in film posters. That's where they be made.
Films are made in film posters.
Talking of film posters and the creepy gnome you remember from a couple of minutes ago.
Which especially Konstantin has been doing a lot of craftsmanship for the past few days.
What I am doing right now is art hacking, which is just a fancy word for we bought this garden gnome and we are destroying it in a fashion that is good for us. So this is going to be a rope belt, very clumsy rope belt.
I think it's becoming very clear that garden gnome customization is not our career path.
Well, but then again, it's the first time we're doing this.
That's true. The next gnome we do, we're gonna do slightly better already.
Yes,
it's much like these videos.
No, we don't need a separate workspace. No.
Oh no!
These are like the perfect working conditions.
This is what we're gonna look back to in, a year. Looking back fondly to the good old days in the shoebox.
Looking down from our, 20 stories production building, where we will have actually like a 1-to-1 scale replica of this very shoebox, where we can come back, to recreate this startup
to get
feel.
the original energy back. I like it.
Yes.
Are we just gonna? you're kind of on the outskirts of this campus housing facility. Can we just break off the shoebox and take it with us?
If we would sneakily. Oh, this looks shitty.
This looks awful.
Really bad. Really bad. I hope we can fix it somehow. I think that's a secret behind art, and but many people don't understand. The intermediate result always looks like shit. It has to. It only gets better from there. I mean, you need to be willing to put that work, and maybe you put some work in and then you see it still looks like shit. But you need to believe that if you put enough work, gradually it will stop looking like shit and start looking like something. Exactly, something. And something is pretty good for starters. Something is pretty good. And then you just go on from there. And you build and rebuild, and you write and you rewrite, and you paint and repaint until either you're dead or the thing you've done is cool. That's the whole secret behind art, at least for me. Garden gnomes are usually very friendly. They're not very non-threatening, but the movie we are making is still a thriller, and that's why I wanted to give it sort of a very dark and edgy lighting setting. So this was the whole idea. The reason why this gnome is so
freaking
creepy is because I didn't know where I would put the camera for the poster shoot, so I shot a bunch of different perspectives, and I'm going to put in the pupils in Photoshop just to have that freedom.
I'm going to sneak up to this gnome at night at some point and give him eyes because he creeps me out.
Hello!
We're in this phase right now of pre-production where you've been working with a lot of lists and you've been working with a lot of information, you've been working with spreadsheets and documents, and you're hitting the point now where you're actually going out into the world and doing things, which starts with torturing a garden gnome and then goes on to, meeting people, talking to people, getting other people excited. Next up is a trip to Nuremberg on Sunday to shoot the pitch trailer for the crowdfunding campaign, which will also let us get to know our location where we're going to do the main shooting a little better, and we're going to meet the little boy who's going to play Timur and work with him a little bit, get him ready for the role, get him excited. It's a really fun part of filmmaking that is somewhat addictive and really awesome.
So thank you for your time. We are going to tell you a little bit more about the pitch trailer shooting next week, and hope you stay with us.
And if you're really lucky, you're going to get to know some other people next week. But maybe not.
Yeah, probably.
If not, there's going to be the gnome again.
You remember how we said, oh, we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this. And those are all projects. They're pretty cool, but they're like works in progress. But what we failed to mention is we already have a thing with our name on it outside, and it's actually not a small thing. I had the honor to work with my good friend Jan Strödmann on the music video of Zugezogen Maskulin, which are quite a popular up-and-coming German indie rap hip
They're musicians.
They're musicians, and the video turned out actually pretty sweet, and you can find it somewhere here.
It's animation, so it's different than faces. It's animation!
And it's very creepy.
And it's really creepy.
But I think it's nice.
And I wasn't actually involved in this.
But you still see the Konstitutionelle Anarchie logo put out into this world. So this is like the first actual instance where you can see our wonderful, beautiful logo, which you cannot steal anymore. So that's for now. Hope to see you next week. Hello!